Good morning, everyone. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to the International Open Access Week 2021. I'm Dalal Rahme, librarian at the American University of Beirut Libraries. Thank you for joining us and celebrating this week. This is a global event, now entering in its 14th year. It's an opportunity for us to engage with our research community in discussions about the benefits of open science and open access, and the importance, their importance for scholarship and research. It's also an opportunity for us to share our experiences with each other and to inspire each other. This year's theme is around equity and pursuing scholarship. It's entitled, "It Matters How We Open Knowledge, Building Structural Equity." Now, the theme aligns with the draft of Unesco's recommendation on open science, which articulates the importance of equity in pursuing a future for scholarship that is open by default. And here I quote, "Open science should play a significant role in ensuring equity among researchers for developed and developing countries, enabling fair and reciprocal sharing of scientific inputs and outputs, and equal access to scientific knowledge to both producer and consumers of knowledge, regardless of location, nationality, race, age, gender, income, socioeconomic circumstances, career, stage, discipline, language, religion, disability, ethnicity, or migratory status, or any other grounds." I will share a link with you related to the Unesco's recommendation on open science in the chat box. The draft recommendation is scheduled to be formally adopted by UNESCO member states in the coming months, November 2021. At AUB Libraries, we usually invite faculty members and research assistants to attend this event. This year, we decided to invite all AUB community, including our students, who will be engaging in research sooner or later. We want you to learn more about open science at an earlier stage of your academic life, and have you as partners in advocating for open science in your own way. We are having 3 webinars through which we will touch on different topics under the open science umbrella. On day 1 today, we'll talk about open access publishing. Tomorrow, we'll have a session on green open access. We will speak about self-archiving, our institutional repository at AUB, and different kinds of open licenses one can use. On Wednesday, we'll talk about, for the first time actually at AUB, about open education. This is a new initiative led by AUB Libraries to encourage our teaching faculty in adapting and creating open educational materials to make the curriculum more inclusive and to bring down the cost of education by eliminating the purchase of expensive textbooks. It's very important for our students to attend this last session, so I invite you all to register and to tell your colleagues, your friends about it. We want to voice your needs and concerns, and this is why it's important for you to participate in such discussions. I will not speak more about it until Wednesday. I just want to let you know that you can ask any questions directly in the chat box or live at the end of the presentation when we'll have time for Q&As. The speakers and I will be glad to answer any of your questions. And also, if you don't feel comfortable in asking questions now, or you need to think more about the questions you have, you can also shoot us an email or schedule a meeting with us to discuss any topic or project or concern related to open science, open access, open publishing, open education, open data, etc. Without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it over to our speakers today, Ms. Nabila Shehabeddine, the Head of Research and Instructions at AUB Libraries, and Dr. El-Zein, the Head of the Saab Medical Library at AUB, to tell us more about open access publishing. Nabila, Ola, please go ahead.
Okay. Would you please, Ola, share your screen? You want me to start, or you would like to introduce us, since you have the screen as the sharing?
Ola, we cannot hear you.
You are muted.
We can't hear you. I think that Nabila, if Ola wants to share the screen, you can start until she troubleshoots.
Okay. I'm going to start by just introducing. Okay. So me and Dr. Ala will be talking about introduction to open access publishing. I'm going to start by talking about open access in general and open access publishing and what should we do in relation to that. Then Dr. Ala will follow on and highlight other things related to open access. So let me start by asking, what is open access? Open access actually is a movement in higher education to increase access to scholarly research and communication, and also it's a way to not limit this access exclusively to subscribers or purchasers of scholarly research. Also, open access is where publications are available online to all, free of charge. In other words, making research available for others to read without having to pay, but it's not free publishing. It's only free access to information, free of most copyright and licensing restriction, and the majority of open access materials are deposited somewhere and they are accessible immediately, in full and in suitable electronic forms. So open access also allow unrestricted online access to scholarly information in different format. It could be peer-reviewed journal articles, conference proceeding, working papers, graduate thesis, data, and much more. This is briefly about the open access. So let's move to the next question. What is open access publishing? Open access publishing is a model whereby scholarly journals, articles, and books are published online with no or minimal restriction on access and reuse. And there are many types, but the basic types of open access publishing are two, green open access publishing and gold open access publishing. Let's go now to this infographic, which illustrate these two open access publishing. Let's say a researcher decides to publish either in an open access journal or in a subscription-based journals. In all cases, it's very important for the researcher to check the site Sherpa Romeo to learn about open access and self-archiving options. And depending on the way he wants to publish, then he can relate to these options. Let's say the researchers want to publish in an open access journal. This is the gold open access model. There is a fee to pay in open access. It's not free of charge, and the fee is known as article processing charge. Some open access journals may not request to pay this charge, but the majority do that. The copyright belongs to the author, and usually whatever the article or whatever materials will show immediately on the open access website of the publisher. If the researcher wants to publish in a subscription-based journal, here we have two options, either fully subscription-based journal or a hybrid journal. In this case, for the fully for a subscription-based journal, it's very important that the researcher will look for an open access repository to deposit either a preprint or post-print of the article in order to make it open. And this is what we call the green open access model or self-archiving. And tomorrow, Ms. Dalal Rahmi will talk more about self-archiving in a repository. In this case, the article will appear and become open access depending on the publisher policy, either immediately or it will be delayed and available after a certain time. And the copyright, and why? Because the copyright in this case belongs to the publisher of the journal and not to the author. The third option is the hybrid journal. So in this case, it's a subscription-based journal with a paid for open access, where in this case, the author will have to pay the article processing charge if required. And if he do that, or he or she, then the article will immediately appear on the open access page of the publisher. But in all cases, the researchers should understand their copyright options before publishing, whether in open access or in subscription-based journals. So what are the author's copyrights? Before transferring copyright, authors should read and understand carefully copyright agreements they sign with publisher, and always consider including an appendix or addendum to ensure certain right to reuse and share their work. The Spark and the Sherpa Romeo websites, they give you an idea. The Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Collision will provide you useful information about authors' rights, while the Sherpa Romeo will give you idea about open access and self-archiving copyright policies. So please always consider to read the information before signing anything. What about copyright transfer? Transferring copyright do not need to be all or nothing. When signing an agreement with a publisher, the author may either transfer all his right to the publisher or transfer the copyright to the publisher but retain certain rights. For example, like posting the article in on a personal website or in an institutional or subject-specific repository, sharing copies of the article with colleagues or students, and also using part of this article maybe in future publications. And 3, retain all of his right and license, the right to the publisher. In this case, the publisher will have the right to reproduce and publish the manuscript in all format and in all medium and by all means. You can go to the Scholar Copyright Addendum Engine to download a PDF format that you can attach to the journal publisher agreement in order to retain some certain rights to yourself. In addition to copyright, of course, there are some responsibilities that you need to consider. It's the responsibility of the author to publish and preserve a paper. Okay, you must always negotiate the right with the publisher and stress on getting a permission to publish in an institutional repository at least whenever possible. And as AUB researchers, you have the option to deposit your scholarly-oriented publication in what we call the AUB Scholar Works. And there is you have a whole guide related to open scholar work, and one of the how to deposit, who can deposit, and the most important is to check the copyright and author rights and other guidelines. Another responsibility is to create or establish a research identity. And you can do that by creating your ORCID ID as an AUB affiliate. Why it's important? Because this will help you to identify yourself as a researcher and to create a research identity. Why is ORCID ID? Because it's a persistent digital identifier and it's belong to you throughout your career, and you can control when and where to use your ORCID. Why registering? First, it avoids name ambiguity. It distinguishes you from other researchers, and it assures that your work is attributed to you. So whether you write, especially if you write your name in different ways, and it's very important in especially for Arabic names. It enhances author and work discovery and improve research visibility. And recently, the majority of funders and journal publishers, they require that the author provide a research ID. And since you have option to use the ORCID ID, is it recommended or not? Is it forced? No, but it is always recommended that you create an ORCID ID. There is a whole guide on how to create your ORCID ID. I'm going to highlight how to do that, or Ms. Ola will show you how to get to the guide on how to create your ORCID ID as AUB affiliate. What else we can do? So why publishing in open access? Because this will increase visibility, exposure, users, and impact of your research. It will expand readership, and of course, it will give you greater citation rate. But there are some misconceptions about open access publishing. Some believe that open access journals are not of good quality or can be considered predatory, and this is not true at all. Open access works are not copyrighted. They are copyrighted most of the time. They do not have peer reviewed. Many of them, they are following a peer review process, and they are not free of charge. Sometimes the charge can be very high, especially in technical and scientific papers or journals. Before submitting manuscript to open access journals, you need to vet any of these journals, or in other words, you should do at least the minimum by checking if the journal is indexed in DOAG, it's the Directory of Open Access Journals. Learn about the open access and self-archiving copyright policy by checking, of course, the SharePoint Romeo website. Check if the journal is compliant with the funder's policy. So please always check the funder agreement and make sure that it's compliant. Check if the journal is indexed in reputable databases like JSTOR, Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed, and Ulrich. And try to avoid predatory journals. And Dr. Ala will talk in details about how to do that. And also you can check if the journal has an ISS number, international number. It's unique for each journal, and what's the impact factor. If the journal is a member of COPE or Committee of Publishing Ethics, make sure that the publisher is a member of a reputable industry organization like Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association or Committee on Publication Ethics. Know who supports the cost of publishing. Is there an article processing charge to pay for open access for the journal you have selected or not? If the institution supports this charge or not, and so on. So the question is, how much do I have to pay to publish in an open access journal? The fee is known as article processing charge or charges, and it replaced actually the subscription fees that usually the library will pay or the subscriber will pay to have access to the journal. And it's vary greatly from zero in some journals to 3,000 or more in other journals. And there are two sites that you can use to check the charge. We have the Eigenfactor Index of Open Access Fees. You can simply click on, it's on the main page of the Eigenfactor. You can click on Open Access Fees, and this will give you the list of journal that has no open access fees. And you can also check the website of the DOAG, Directory of Open Access Journals. On the main page, you can see the list of journals that do not require a fee to publish. Where to publish? You can either publish in an open access journals, and many journals, including some prestigious or reputable journals, provide open access publishing options to author. Here are some examples. We mentioned already the Directory of Open Access Journals. We have the Biomed Center, Elsevier Open Access, IEEE, Royal Society Open Science, Sage, Springer Open Access, and for Arabic, we have DFAG or Directory of Free Access Journals أو دليل الدوريات العربية المجانية. This is if you want to publish your article in a journal. But if you want to make a preprint or a postprint of your article available for other users, then you can deposit your work in an open access repository to share it. It could be an institutional repository like AUB Scholar Work. It's the institutional repository of AUB. And you have subject-specific repositories And here are some examples: PubMed, ArcBooks, and others. They are subject specific. ArcBooks is more for sciences and for pre-printing archiving. PubMed, it's for medical, cognitive science, preprint archives, and others. If you don't find your subject specific repository, then you can look at the list of directory and see if there is any interesting subject specific repository in Open DOAR or in Open Access Directory. It's for sciences and scholarship, or a ROR or disciplinary repositories. They are all listing, and you can check over the list if there's anything relevant to your subject. At AUB, we already mentioned that you can open access repository is AUB Scholar Work. It's very important, and the main goal is to collect and publish and preserve research publication produced by scholars at AUB. I recommend that you register for tomorrow's sessions in order to learn more about this. And also you can not only deposit your articles or your publication, but you can also deposit your data at AUB. But for more details on how to use the AUB Scholar Work, you can check with Ms. Mona Asi. For open access data, we have what we call the AUB Data Bank. And it offers a long-term storage for scholarly output. AUB researchers can upload their published or unpublished data set to AUB Data Bank. And for contact information, you can always refer to Ms. Dalal Rahmi, and who will be giving tomorrow's sessions on self-archiving and AUB Scholar Works. What are some misconceptions or advantages and disadvantages of open access? Advantages, of course, it will increase visibility and your citation. It's easier to access than because they are open to everybody. They are published faster or sooner than articles in non-open access journals, and they reach a broader audience than, of course, journals that need subscription. A disadvantage, high quality open access journals, they did not establish a reputation as strong as the non-open access journal. They are not cheaper because the author has to pay the cost. And there is a lot of predatory open access journals that try to mislead author by sending emails and so on. And this will be covered in details by Dr. Ola again. What about AUB? Do we support open access publishing or not? Actually, AUB is participating in the membership program of the following open access publisher. And due to this membership, AUB scholar and academic researchers are eligible for waivers and discounts on the article processing charge for open access publishing. Ola will show you the guide, and we'll go very quickly over discounts that are available to you. This is briefly our general information, our introduction about open access. Thank you for your attention, and I'm going to leave the floor to Dr. Ola.
Dr. Ala, can you test your microphone? We are still unable to hear you. Okay. So Dr. Ala will leave, but Nabila, we have a question from Miss Catherine Grace.
Okay.
In one of your previous slides, you listed a set of open access journals, and some of these publishers also have non-open access as well, right?
Yes.
For example, for Sage journals and Sage Open, what is the difference between them? And do they have different impact factors or reputations?
Of course, each journal has its own impact factor depending on the subject. So the impact factor has nothing to do with whether the journal is open access or not, especially when we are talking about Sage. So
what you're saying that the same journal, you could have the same title. I mean, the same journal could have two routes, either open access or like the traditional way of publishing. And this is one impact factor for the journal, right?
Yes, especially if the journal in this case is hybrid. Yani, now we are talking about hybrid journals, so it is the same with open access with fee and with subscription. But if the journal is fully open access, then the impact factor is different. Yani, it will be a different journal.
Right.
I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah. Catherine, was the question answered? Okay. Dr. Ala, can you try now?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Perfect.
Great.
Okay. Good morning again. And thank you so much for taking the time to attend. Thank you, Dalal. Thank you, Nabila, for putting the efforts to make this happen. I hope this webinar will be helpful for you. So please feel free to get to us if there's any question. Before I start with my part, which is more continuation to Ms. Nabila's part, we'll show you the guides that she talked about so that we move to something new. So we'll share my screen and okay. Okay, so how can you reach these guides to know more detailed information, especially the two important guides that Ms. Nabila talked about? You can go to the main library's website or to SML website. You will find research guides under tools or research guides under libraries. It's just I'm more used to using SML. So when you go to research guides, you can search for the name of the guide. You can just say open access and you will get the guide that Ms. Nabila was talking about. So here it is. I saw some of you asked also about the waivers and discounts that she just noted to in her last slide. So here you can find the most updated information about any institutional as AUB waiver or discount. We receive a lot of questions because we know now, especially with the situation and economic situation in Lebanon. So these are some of the main publishers where we have some discounts for, and this page is always updated with the name of the publisher, like BMJ Journals, BMC, MDPI, Sage, Springer, and all all the available ones. You can see what is the waiver or the discount that is now applicable to you as an AUB affiliate, whether it is a percentage, which can range from as low as 10% or more. It can be open, or it can be a given, especially now with the new situation, they're offering sometimes like a free APC for the six first ones who submit their journals. So you can here find all the details about these waivers and discounts, and if there's any additional information related to this specific waiver for this specific publisher. The rest of the guide points out to the more information about open access. So if you have any other question or anything that you would like to review, here are other information which are collected by Ms. Nabila in this very useful guide. So this is the open access guide. You can also check for the other guide about ORCID. So also you can search for ORCID, and you will find this guide where it teaches you step by step how to, what do we mean by ORCID, how to create it, how to, if you are a first-time user, how to create an account, and how to add all your publications, all the information related to that. It's just a small guide as a guidance for you on what to do related to these. So these were the two important guides that she mentioned, and we'll go to talking about predatory journals. Then we'll go to some practical application on how to avoid this. So as someone who has a background, PhD in biology and research, and a researcher, faculty member, now director of the medical library, we really, I get a lot of questions about journals. Yani almost every day I receive an email, whether this journal is trusted, is it predatory, how do we evaluate, how do we know? Because I think this business is getting more and more fashionable. So there are a lot of people who are adopting it as business incomes. So that's why it gets to be more and more important topic to cover and to talk about. So predatory journals are not journals that you publish in for free, or not journals that are always open access or not open access. Or so these are journals that charge you for publication fees, but without providing legitimate peer review services prior to publication. So all they care about is just to address, probably most of the times, to send an email to any a researcher that they just found his name or her name. They ask for submitting an article. Sometimes some of the researchers, unfortunately, they get trapped with this journal. They go submit their article, and the problem comes here as a very serious one. So what are some things that you should look at for evaluating a predatory journal? There's no one criterion, so it's not like yes or no. It's not like a machine which tells you, yes, this is predatory, no, this is not predatory. So it's like a set of criteria that you have to check. I'll tell you a few of them. There are a lot of warning signs that you should pay attention for. So it's like a collection of data that you acquire about a journal that helps you as a researcher to decide whether I go for this publication, I go and submit or not. So it's not clear. Sometimes it's a bit gray. Sometimes it's very clear. And even by checking it in one or two lists and appearing as predatory, it answers you. So the first thing to pay attention for is to go and check the journal website. As we usually do when, as authors, we want to submit our article, we go and check about the journal, the website, what is the main scope of the journal, because you usually choose your journal based on its scope, whether it is concerned with what you cover as subject, as topic or not. That's the main thing that we as authors, the first thing to check. So usually in these journals, in the website, you encounter a lot of spelling, grammatical errors. You see sometimes they're lacking about us page, so they don't give a lot of information about the journal itself. There's not much sufficient contact information. In terms of scope, it's very vague, very broad, so it's not really specific. Or sometimes, on the contrary, it's like very, very, very specific, and you have to be cautious about these things. A very important thing that they try to do is indicating false metrics and indexing claims. So they claim that they are indexed in the OAG, or they are indexed in Scopus, they are indexed in Medline. They claim that they have an impact factor of 3 or 1 or 2. So all these, you need to validate them. You need to go and check. And now we will do the practical part of teaching you how you can go and simply check for these straightforward things to check. Is the impact factor there or not? Is the site score there or not? And other things. Usually also what's funny is that sometimes they put wrong addresses and geographical information. So it's very advisable sometimes that you go and use simply Google Maps to double check whether this address is right or wrong. Sometimes they say they are present in UK or in whatever, and they are sometimes in a street which doesn't exist, or maybe in China or somewhere else. So they're not really honest about what contact information they put. About the articles themselves, so the first thing has to do with the journal website and all the information related to it. The second thing, which we usually pay attention to, because again, as authors, you go and check some of the published articles that are already published there. Good quality articles, not good quality. Surprisingly, in these predatory journals, sometimes you find very few or almost no published articles. Sometimes you find a lot of articles for the same author, يعني, as if it's like a contract, a business contract between them. So almost all his articles are only published in this journal. They don't put appropriate article titles and abstracts, so they might these might be also fake. The articles might not be of good quality, and they might not be well researched, so you couldn't get to them. And it's also advisable that in this case, if you ask the authors about their experience with this journal, so it's always asking is always a good criterion that we try to base our decision on if we're not satisfied with whatever research we've done. The editorial board, which we know the editors are one of the main people who we target in this journal. So these are the ones whom this journal, the reputation and all this is based on. So usually a lot of predatory journals don't list the editorial board. Or they list some people who are not really experts in the field, especially when it's about a very specific topic. We know that there are some leaders and experts in the field, and no one of them you've heard of, and you are a well-known researcher in the field, so you know who is known and who is not. Sometimes, on the contrary, they put a lot of names who are very well known and reputable experts in the field, but without any knowledge of the editor himself. And they might sometimes change a bit of his contact information, change maybe a letter of his name or of his email. So that's where they try to put some fake credentials for the editors. That's why also advisable, as it's advisable to ask the authors, also to ask an editor about their experience with this journal. As I said, usually these predatory journals, since it's like more a business, they aim to target us as researchers. So I always, when I receive emails asking me about journals, they always forward to me an email that was sent by the journal themselves. So they always send these journals where sometimes the journals are written maybe in non-professional language or in very poorly constructed English language, or on the other, in other cases, they just filled of flattery words and dear, esteemed, whatever, you will be a great addition to. This doesn't mean that it's always wrong, but I mean, this is one of the signs that they usually use, and it's usually common among some of these predatory journals. So most of the times, the researchers get trapped because of these unsolicited email invitations that they receive. It's not because you find it out of what you know in your circle of, in the environment of researchers that you know, or in the articles that you read. So they aim to target them by inviting them for publishing, for reviewing, by being an editor, yani to be on board. This will, for them, is a big addition. Publication and the fees. So usually we know in normal, usual cases, the publication takes time. So we submit the article, we wait for a preliminary approval or not, depending whether it fits the scope or not. Then it goes for the editors, then it reaches the reviewers to review it thoroughly, give comments or accept it just directly if it's perfect, which is very, very low percentage, but usually give their comments, send it back to you, give it back. And this takes time. So sometimes it takes months and months, yani from 1 year to another, for your publication and article to be published. In these cases, usually the publication is rapid. So in no time, they promise you that this will be published next month or next week or whatever. That's because it lacks this thorough, stringent, honest, clear peer review process. So it's either unclear, it's either very loose. They might have no even editors and reviewers to get back to them. So they just promise, submit the article, give us the article, and they just submit it because they don't care about the quality. All they care for is to get the article and just publish it. Also, the same happens for the fees. So usually the fees are not clear. Electricity. So the fees are usually not clear. You don't really know whether it is for free or not for free, or whether there are some hidden fees that they might ask you to submit at later stages. So they're not really clear because this, as I said, the About Us and the section which we directly go to as information for authors is also insufficient, not clear. So we're not really aware of how much money we are supposed to pay at some time. And one more thing is that usually the fees that are supposed to be as APCs, article processing charges, are not really comparable with the reputable journals. That's why they just need any fees, anything to add to their business. So these are like a section that I added like red flags, which I hope you pay attention for. So as I said, be cautious of emailed invitations. This doesn't mean always an email is from a predatory journal, but this is one sign to be cautious of. The name of the journal, it's very important. Yani, maybe in 95% of the predatory journals, they use a name which is very similar to a prominent journal in the field. Yani, they use مثلا بيشوفوا Lancet is a very prominent journal, or a Nature or whatever. They add a letter, they change something, like a business brand. Yani, when you find any brand which is usually maybe a restaurant or something, they come to do something fake. They use a name which is really very close, so the author in this case might not pay attention, as the customer wouldn't really pay attention for the difference between them. So usually they play on that, the naming, because for you, when you get used to the name, you will think, oh, okay, this is very similar to a prominent journal. The geographical information, as I said, is usually misleading. The website is either unprofessional, outdated, it lacks any professional sense or any good information about the journal. The scope, as I said, the aims, the information for authors, these are all either very broad, very vague, not clear, not sufficient. The contact information usually is insufficient. You might not be really able to contact them clearly based on the information that they've put. The editors, the editorial board, either there's no editorial board, or the information is fake, or their credentials are fake if they use someone who's expert, or they're not known at all. They have unclear author fee structures, as I said, for the APCs. So you might have some hidden APCs that they might ask you to pay at some point. The metrics, the journal metrics, which are mainly the impact factor, the site score, they are sometimes invented. So in terms of claiming that they have an impact factor of whatever number, and they don't really exist in the, if you go to Web of Science to site score and others, they claim that they are indexed in this database, but they're not. The review process, as I said, is very poor. Usually, the submission of manuscripts also in reputable prominent journals, they ask to submit it via a third party, most of the cases. In this case, they always claim like, send it by email, that's enough. That's it, the submission is done. So this is not really the case. It's not, we don't submit the journals usually, the articles for prominent journals via email. You go to the third party websites or so to submit all the information, fill your information, while in this case, it's just via an email. They don't have any evaluation for their published articles. The publisher himself, we also go and check for the publisher. There's some lists of publishers who claim to be good publishers, but they're really predatory. So sometimes you will find the publisher listed in these predatory list of publishers. There's no adequate or clear digital preservation information, as Ms. Nabila mentioned about the preserving the article. No retraction policy, even if you want to retract it, because all they care for is to make you submit it. So they definitely wouldn't provide any policy for being able to retract it. And that's where it is really very serious. I've witnessed some cases where very prominent researchers have been trapped by these predatory journals who would affect your research integrity, might affect your promotion files. So it's really very serious. The copyright information is also lacking. So your copyrights as authors, as also she detailed them, whether you want to give full license or not. So these are usually lacking. There's no ISSN, which every journal should have this identity number, which is international and unique for it. So at the end, I would say sometimes we do all these checkings and flags and we pay attention for them. Sometimes use your common sense. I always give my advice, but I say I leave it up to you in case you feel like sometimes even your common sense, if none of these is sufficient for you to judge whether you will go for it or not. So how do we usually spot predatory journals? As I said, in addition to all these red flags, you can use some evidence-based tools to be able to check whether this journal have valid information based on what they are claiming or not. So usually we advise that we go and check for the journal, whether it's listed in Ulrich Web. I'll show you how to do that. Whether it is in the journal citation reports, in CiteScore. If it's indexed in the directory of open access journals, I'll also show you. Indexed in Medline, indexed in Scopus, Web of Science, which are very good databases. Definitely we go and check whether it's listed in the Beale's list of predatory journals. This was created, a list that was created by Beale himself. Unfortunately, it wasn't updated by him since 2017, but I've read that there is an some postdoc individuals who are updating this list. And there are definitely other tools and things that are coming now as this predatory journals field is flourishing more and more. As I said, also, you have to pay attention for the publisher himself, whether he's a member of a recognized professional organization, you know about them. As we show you some names of the publishers and the discounts, these are known publishers that we know about. So you can use these lists of OASPA, STM, COPE. We will give you all the links, whether you can check whether this publisher is listed over there or not. So that's basically for the theoretical part, if we can say, of this presentation. So the first things which I advise you when you want to check for an open access journal, good impact factor journal, is to check for it in JCR and CiteScore. And these are the first things that we will go and check. Any questions so far before I go to the practical part? Not sure. Let me try to see the chat. Is there anything, Dalal, which you want me to stop before?
There are no questions so far.
Okay, so I think I can move to the practical part. Okay. So what you can do is you can come again to the library website. You can come to the databases to check for the journal metrics, that whether they are claiming that this is a journal that have this metrics. I'm saying metrics because impact factor is only one of these metrics. So it's not like whether it has an impact factor or not. There are a lot of metrics for a journal, like there are a lot of metrics for an author, H-index, G-index, and I-10 and others. There are also a lot of metrics for the journal itself. So it can have an impact factor, it can have a site score. So I'll show you these two, which are the most commonly used one. What you can do is you can go to Scopus as the first database. And you can check for if you have a specific name of the journal. Scopus provides a journal metric which is called site score. Okay, if you are off campus, it will ask you for easy proxy credentials, your AUB and username and password, so that you will be able to access it as if you are on campus. You will be able to access everything. Once you are in Scopus, as we said, if you have a name of a journal, you can simply type the name, check if it has a site score or not. Impact factor is another metric which is provided by another database, Web of Science. We will look at these two. I think it's taking a bit of time. So by the time this is opening, I'll go and open Web of Science. What you can do, Web of Science is not listed under the frequently used databases in this case. So you can go to A to Z list of databases, and you can directly go to letter W and choose Web of Science. So impact factor journal citation reports is by Web of Science, site score is by Scopus. Okay. So here, the interface of how Web of Science looks is new, maybe for some of you who are used to the old ones. So they just launched in new one. That's why you might feel things are different, but it's always the same information is there in one way or another. It's taking a bit. So this time I've kept a backup because I know. So this is the directory of open access journals. If you want to go and see a list of open access journals, this is the DOAJ list that Nabila and I talked about. So you simply go doaj.org. So you can all access it. You can find, it's a directory of open access journals. So you can go and check for open access journals. They tell you that you have journals in 80 languages, 129 countries presented, some information. And here is something important, which shows like a filter for journals without APCs. يعني I get a lot of questions, as I said, especially recently, about selecting a good journal, but with zero charges. So here is a good thing that you can check for. If you have a name of a journal, you can just go and check for it, or you can go to these 12,000 journals list and you can see all of them have no APCs, no article processing charges. This means they are for free. You can definitely go and filter by subject if you are interested in a certain يعني medicine, education, history, philosophy, whatever field or subject that your specialty is. You can also filter through others, يعني languages, publishers, but usually the two main filters in the APCs and the subject. And once you get the list, how many journals, you can go to the journal itself and you will have like a profile about it. So you can go and open it and read about the journal. Okay, it will take you to the website. It will give you information about it. Okay, as much information as possible. And this is an updated directory, we can say, so that you will have these information. Okay, so this is for DOAJ, or as I said, you can, let's say, I'm not sure if this is open now. You can write the name of the journal and you can search for it, whether it appears or not. So it gave me Canadian Oncology Nursing Journal is an open access journal, which is published in Canada. It accepts in English, and I can open to read more about it. Okay, so this is for DOAJ, and it covers the open access. It covers it's one of the red flags, remember, to check whether this journal is listed in DOAJ or not. Another check that you can do, as I said, to go and check if it's listed, indexed in PubMed or Medline. You can also go either to frequently used databases or to A to Z list of databases, but it appears under the frequently. However, I would like to point, especially for the medical people, don't always rely that it is indexed in PubMed, because for me, I take it extra cautious and not only in PubMed, but also in Medline, because we have a lot of journals that are indexed in PubMed because they've been in the PMC, in the PubMed Center. However, when it's being indexed in Medline, it comforts me more because all that are indexed in Medline will have undergone the stringent peer-reviewed process. So it wouldn't be indexed in Medline just like this because it's in PMC. So that's why when I go to journals in PubMed and I want to check for whether it's indexed or not, you can type the name of the journal. So you see where I went on the main page, journals, not the main search box. Now I can put the journal, if you know the title, the abbreviation, or the ISSN. Okay, so let's say I want to try the same journal. It will give me now information about it, when it started, is print or online, publisher, sometimes it changes, indexed in PubMed, not indexed. So it gave me several possibilities having this name. Well, let's say I'll open this one, which is the one I want. And here we go. It started in 1999. It is in France. Okay. And this is the ISSN. It says that, okay. So it doesn't tell me not currently indexed for Medline. Okay, so it is in PubMed, but also for selected citations, not everything. Not currently indexed in Medline. So I would be a bit cautious. As I said, we are collecting evidence to make our decision whether to go for it or not. If I find it indexed in Medline, I would be more relieved, honestly. What's happening over here? Okay. So we are back to Web of Science to be able to check the impact factor and the JCR, and Scopus is also opening to check the site score. So once you are in Scopus, what you have to do, usually by default, you have the search, click on sources, because you are not searching for documents talking about the topic. You want to check about this source, about this journal. So go for sources, and you have two ways to check. Either you have the name of the journal itself, and you ask for information about it, or you don't really know a specific journal, and you want to give you a suggested list of good journals that are in this specialty. Okay, so here we go. After you click sources, you go and put here either title or subject area. Title, this means I know the title of the journal that I'm asking. Yani they sent me an email from, let's say, the same journal, and I'm checking whether there is a site score or not. So I'll put the name again here, and I'll check, does it have a site score or not? Site score and impact factor, as I said, both journal metrics, but the way they are calculated is a bit differently. يعني واحدة over 3 years, it takes the number of documents, the number of citations, another over 2 years. So it's just a bit of mathematical equations. أكيد it's good to know how, but just for the sake of time, I'm going briefly over them. So I want to see about this journal. I'm asking it to give me information about it. Does it have a site score or not? I can try the same in private. Internet is. I'm sorry, it was working perfectly. Apparently now. Okay, so here we go. So in Scopus, it gave me all these, which are contained on call keyword that I did. Okay, so it told me this one, if you're asking about this one, it has a site score of 0.2. It's 9% percentile. Okay, you can also open it and as if you go to the profile, yani, as if you're seeing something on a social media profile. Here you have an academic profile where you can know all the information about it. How much it ranks with respect to other journals, what is the site score, is it increasing, decreasing, improving, not improving. So here how you go and information about one specific title. You see? So you got all the information. You can also go to rank, to coverage, here we go, site score and all this. So 0.2 is honestly a very low site score. Definitely it is in the, you know, quartiles and percentiles. So what you can do also, as I said, you might say, I don't know a specific journal, I want to publish in a journal. Okay, you can ask it to give you recommendations in one of these specialties. You might say, well, a bit in general chemistry, whatever. And it will give you a list of journals. Now you can filter by open access. So this is also a way to answer what Nabila showed you and how you can access some open access journals. Okay, you can tell you, out of this list, I want the open access ones. You put a filter here. By this time, oops. I try to reach it in another way. Should always have backups. So Scopus is giving me a list of general chemistry journals where I want to select the ones. You can put the filter that you want, but since we're talking about open access, I'm just showing you how you can, oops, Mafi. Okay, because I kept this one, you see. Okay, let me remove this one. I'll open JCR. So the idea is very simple. You'll get a list and you can say display only open access. Yeah, you don't want to look at the others if you care only about open access. What's happening? Okay, for JCR, كمان you have the same way, either to search by the name of the journal and get the impact factor, the profile, everything about it, or also to ask it to recommend some journals in a specific specialty, and you might also filter by open access only journals. Okay, so by the time they're, okay, it's working. Finally. By the time, if there's any question for me,
Yes,
you see,
Ala.
these are the, yes,
There's a question. If a journal,
go ahead.
if a journal is in the directory of open access journals, can we assume it's not on Bale's journal, Bale's list, or should we also check for that?
What I do personally, I'm saying what I adopt is, as I said, I don't rely on one evidence. What I do, maybe I'm more of a picky person, but what I do is that I collect information from all what I describe. So unless it's known, وهيك بس لأنه usually these are like of concern to us. I go to Scopus, I go to Web of Science, I go to DOAJ, I go to Ulrich, so really I do all this to have هيك a more comfortable evidence-based decision. That's what I do. Usually it should be in DOAG, not in Beale's list. بس أنا لأنه Beale's list is not really أصلا updated. So, like maybe, as I said, in 2017, so maybe some of them are now predatory, but they're not added there. So that's why I do all these. So I don't rely on one information. I hope I answered. If not, feel free to elaborate more. So you see, I just filtered by only open access journals. Now it gives me only the open access.
So Ala, there's another question, also by
Yes.
Ms. Catherine. I tried not to search in Scopus sources for geograph, and it seems that wildcards do not work here. So what is the best way to search for geography or geographics in the journal title name?
Yeah, if you want to search for journals in a specific specialty, you will need to enter the specialty and mostly to select from here. Okay, it's not like searching, Catherine, like for irregular search, which works by truncation, asterisk, and all these. So what you have to do is that's why they have placed the specialties for us, the subject areas. So it's very preferable that you choose the subject area from the list itself, not by geograph star, geographical, geography. لأنه خلاص, if they put them under, they call it geographical, يعني geographical, geography, they have done the listing. That's why I said you have to put sources, not search. Search يعني for documents. Sources, you are searching for a source, for a journal. Okay, this is JCR again, thankfully. So what you can do, you can browse by journal, you can browse by category, the same. Either the name of the journal or category. Come in, you have a list of categories, like 200 something, and they are promising us, hopefully, that they will give us, coming soon, browsing by publishers and by countries. So you can also have these two ways to browse for a good journal. So come in, what you can do is, and I'm trying the same just to see the difference, So it gives you directly a match for if that journal exists. Let's say you put nature, medicine, nature, all of these. Or it gives you the subjects. So either you go from here or you already limit but the journals or categories. Okay, and you can limit by open access. Any other question? Let me
No
check.
questions.
I think Dalal is checking. Yeah.
No questions.
Okay, so if there's no question, I'm not sure if Nabila wants to add something. If not, I can continue showing them this. But Nabila, please feel free if you want to add Dalal or something. Okay, so here it opens. You see, they gave me all these journals. You can check one of them, or you can directly put the name, let's say JAMA, and you will select the journal. It gives you Kamena quartile, impact factor. You see, it gives me, there are 13. Actually, there's no category called JAMA. It's the name of a journal. And it gives you the profile of the journal. Another way, you can go and browse by categories. يعني list, give me, recommend for me. Here, any journal that you find in this list, in this category, you can definitely trust. It has an impact factor. That's why I'm telling you these ways of how you get a list of good recommended, whether impact factor or site score. So this way, it's really good because يعني it wouldn't be predatory and included in here. So you see, you can go by the category, or you yourself can put the category and go and check. If you take an example, you can open it. You see we have several categories. So that's where I said, Catherine and everyone, you go and check the category as it's named. لأنه it's like a software, يعني AI. So it has to take it حسب how they did the indexing, how they did the listing. Okay, so if I want agronomy, I should choose agronomy as they have indicated, not a general search. Okay, I know we have 4 minutes to go. I think I'm fine. I've showed you almost everything. If I forgot anything, Nabila, please feel free to get it.
I think is there a way to buy open access in JCR as well, like in scope?
Yes. Yes, that's what I said. After you open it should be opening now. After you open the category, you can filter by open access, like we did in Scopus.
Okay. Thank you.
It's the same.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think we're fine. If there's anything, please feel free to go ahead and throw your question. If not, just to respect your time, I think I can stop sharing. Please, if you have any question, definitely this is just a session. Yani it's not a full workshop or about the topic, which is a heavy topic. That's why we have a full week and even more. Thanks again, Dalal, for getting into that. And it was a pleasure. Please feel free, our emails, OE14 and Nabila's email. If you have any question at any time, feel free to get back to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ala, and thank you, Nabila, for the great presentation.
Thank
As
you.
Ala said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. The presentation will be shared with you, also the recordings. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.